Hi, I'm Nicole Ayers, and I am a committee member for Authentic Voices, which is a program sponsored by the Women's National Book Association and Women of Color Writers. And Authentic Voices is a fellowship meant to highlight diversity in publishing by bringing women of color to the table to highlight diversity in publishing in a really educational and immersive setting, and one that hopefully distribute some equity in the publishing world because we don't have enough of that happening right now. And I'm so excited to introduce one of our inaugural cohort fellows, Arao Ameny. She is a Ugandan born writer and poet, and she spent her early childhood in Uganda and grew up in the United States. Arao has a pair of writing degrees, an MFA in creative writing and fiction from the University of Baltimore and an MA in journalism from Indiana University. She has a bachelor's in political science from the University of Indianapolis. And in her MFA program, she also had the opportunity to study poetry. And her first published poem, Home is a Woman, highlights the importance of foremothers and women's land rights in Uganda. And this was published in the Southern Review in 2020. And in 2021, it was awarded with the James Olney Award. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I am looking at all the amazing things you've accomplished already. And in addition to being an Authentic Voices fellow this year, you are also an alumna of the Tin House Workshop for fiction writing. You are a winner of the 2021 Brooklyn Poetry Fellowship. And you attended the Kenyon Review Writers Workshop for Poetry this summer. Oh, and you were selected as a 2021 Hughes Scholar by the Hughes Foundation. Wow, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
I can't wait to talk to you about your writing and your story because you've got such a body of work behind you already. It seems like in a real drive to be a voice in the publishing industry. So we'll just jump right in and tell us about the story that you've been creating for Authentic Voices.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Nicole. I really appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity. Um, well, the story that I'm writing for the Authentic Voices is actually a nonfiction story. I typically write fiction. I studied fiction and I took a few poetry classes and poetry fellowships, but I decided to do nonfiction because it was a story that I felt like it needed to be told. Um, it's about my mother who passed away in 2015 from cancer, from leukemia. So my story is essentially a story about resilience. Unfortunately, my family lost my mother's house to my mother's husband, who of 6 years. Unfortunately, my mother was having trouble coming to terms with her mortality. So she did not sign her will because she just, you know, I'm sure you've heard stories like that. It's
Yeah.
difficult because signing a will can also mean accepting that this is the end, right? So even in hospice, she in Ohio, she was having trouble just signing her will, and because of that, I lost her house. We lost her house. So the house that was supposed to go to myself and my siblings to stay in the family, unfortunately, her husband of 6 years um, sold the house, and I did everything I could to keep it, but we lost it. So that's essentially what the story is about, and it's not just about loss of my mother. Of course, that's the most important story, but it's also about loss of a home,
Mm.
loss loss of a house, loss of memories. Because in that house wasn't just memories of here, of living in the U.S. or living in the Midwest. It was also my school uniform from Uganda. You know, it was also my suitcases that I first came to America with that my mother had held on to for over 20 years. So it's and because she's not here, I feel like I need to tell that story so that people know what happened. Because no one knows. No one, everyone thinks, everything is fine, but it's not fine. And I've struggled with this story for 6 years,
Yeah.
and I told myself it's time, because a former professor told me, you will keep writing this, you will keep writing about your mother until you confront the story. So it seeps out in poetry, in fiction, in everything. And until I tackle it, it's going to haunt me, right? So I told myself, I was like, you know what? I feel comfortable in the Authentic Voices program. Um, we had writing mentors who wrote nonfiction. Um, yes, I'm familiar with journalism, but creative nonfiction is a completely different animal,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Yeah. So a few of the mentors that we had in the Authentic Voices have done nonfiction, have published nonfiction. So they were really helpful and instrumental in helping me kind of flesh out the story, figure out how I want to say it, why I want to say it, um, from what space the story is coming from. Um, is it, you know, a catharsis? Is it, it just, they made me think a lot about why do I need to tell the story, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so that's what my story is about. I hope that
Wow.
answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that I'm just taking all of that in what you were like, why does the story need to be told? Like, and really being thoughtful and not just to, obviously you need to tell this story. You need to be witnessed in the loss that you've experienced and the resilience of it. But why do more people need to hear it? And I love that you were able to tackle those questions. And also I think it really speaks to the community you must have felt in Authentic Voices, that you felt like this was the time and the space to finally talk about this story and tell it. So, wow. What is the title of it?
It's called Tangoizi. Tangoizi is a Swahili word that means ginger. So my mother, anytime we were going through something, whether it was back home or here in the US, um, you know, like most immigrants do, trouble adjusting, trouble understanding the culture, switching from British English to American English, which is totally different, right?
Yes.
Um, um, she said, you know what? Just go make a cup of ginger tea. Just go make a cup of tangoizi. Everything will be fine, you know? So I call the story Tangoizi because regardless of whatever struggles we had um, here as immigrants or maneuvering the Midwest, or cultures, reconciling, negotiating cultures, and trying to figure out home, right? Where's home? Or how do you feel home? Um, I always remembered her, just come sit, let's make some tango easy, let's make some tea, just sit down, let's just be quiet, everything will be fine. And for me, that was important because I think tea or coffee brings people together, brings families together. And for my family, it was ginger tea.
What your mother sounds first off like just such a loving woman. Um, but what a beautiful tradition that you can still hold, even just and to pass along to your loved ones. I
We did a lot of cooking. So of course, making tea, and making it the old-fashioned way by cutting the ginger and getting the honey and boiling it, everything by hand, nothing instant, right?
Yeah.
Um, but also just cooking mandazi. Mandazi is like kind of like I would make it. I would say it's the equivalent of the American donut, you
Okay.
know. Well, without too much sugar, but kind of kneading the dough, and so it's kind of that relationship with food and family. And when you knead the dough, you're not just kneading the dough; you're also you cook with love, And
Mm.
in all
Mhm.
cultures, American cultures, African cultures, European cultures, there's this thing about cooking with love, right? So when you knead the dough, when you pour the tea, when you cut the ginger, it's it's like an experience. It's about, it's almost like you're talking to the food, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's talking back to you. And when you serve this food to your family, or you share it with someone, and in my case, drinking ginger tea, and and then having some mandazi, which is basically, sweet dough that's fried, right? And you have this in the evening or in the morning, and you just talk, and you talk about, life and what's bothering you and how to fix it. These are some of the traditions, the small traditions that I plan on passing down.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love that you were talking about like the preparing it by hand, the taking the time to slow it down, because I know, in the moments when I'm spinning, right, and things aren't okay, having something to really be grounding and just to force me to slow down, to
Mhm.
gather my thoughts and things like that. And I'm thinking about the process of cutting the ginger and all of that, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what you were doing. So beautiful. Well, and so I'm just really intrigued by your story. And you were talking about cooking with love, but it sounds, just in the way you've described your mom and all of the traditions, like you wrote with love.
Mm,
So I am really looking forward to reading this.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Mm,
you for writing it.
mm.
Tell me more about what drew you to Authentic Voices. What drew you to apply?
I actually saw the notice, the advertisement in this group called the Binders. It's on Facebook. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Well, of course you are. You're in writing. You're in publishing. I
But people
found,
listening might not be, so that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So a group of women, women writers, publishers, editors, or people who identify as women, right? And I found it on Facebook, and I thought, they always have postings of fellowships and all this other stuff. But this one was different because it was for specifically BIPOC women, right? I don't know if I'm saying that right. BIPOC.
I think it's
Yeah,
BIPOC.
yeah, BIPOC women. And I thought, wow, that would be really cool to be in a community where everyone is either Black or Indigenous or person of color, and that experience, because my time in the United States has been typically in a white community, in mostly white schools or white churches or basically white spaces, right? Where I'm typically the only one or one of the few Black girls, oh, where's Arao? Oh, she's right there, you know?
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, this would be really cool to not be the only one, right? so,
absolutely.
so apart from that, I also wanted to see what others were experiencing. So I met um, a young lady from who's Native American. I met a young lady who's Chicana, Mexican. I met this lady who's Indian. So just listening to, I met another lady who's African American. Just listening to their experiences and how they navigate different issues or different microaggressions, I've realized we all have the same, we're all going through the same thing, but in different ways,
Mhm.
you know? And I was able to draw from their experiences because, yes, I am African, but in this country, I'm Black. In this country, I am an immigrant. It doesn't matter um, how long I've been here, so just kind of listening to how everyone else in my program kind of negotiates these spaces and deals with microaggressions and also figures out ways in their communities, in their specific communities or affinity groups, figures out ways to be heard and be seen. Um, um, it was interesting to hear because I was able to kind of borrow that, um, and and also share my own experience about how I deal with things, and um, yeah, things that would bring me a lot of anxiety, and also experiences that I did not have the language for.
Mm.
So um, I didn't. I, for example, in my MFA program, I had to over explain what I meant. But it was really cool to be in the program and explain something about an immigrant experience and not have to over explain it and have someone say, oh, I got it. I understand. This is what my mom went through, you know, or, or if they have a family member who doesn't speak English and you have to keep translating, you don't have to over explain that. You have someone who says, oh, I understand. My uncle goes through that. I do that for my uncle, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really cool to be in a program like that. It was affirming. I think that's the right word to say. It was affirming. I didn't feel like I had to translate myself
Mm.
to be understood because that's what I've done most of my life in the US is okay, here I am. And then after that, it's okay, let me explain who I am. Yes, I'm African. What does that mean? Okay, I'm Black. What does that mean? Okay, I'm immigrant. What does that mean? Okay, actually, this is my tribe or my ethnic group. Well, what does that mean? you know?
Right.
So,
Did do you
yeah,
feel like not having to put so much energy into explaining who you are and your experiences allowed you to be more creative?
Yeah, it did. It gave me more time, more energy, more space to do other things. Because I've realized, and this is, and I don't want to blame anyone. Maybe that's just how the status quo is. But I've realized I've been explaining myself for so long that it became my default setting,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it was really nice to not have to do that. It was really nice to just say, I want to write, as opposed to, this is my identity, this is my race, this is my tribe, it gets exhausting. So it was really cool to just say, I want to make art, and how can you help me do that? And learn from other experiences, whether it was from Natalie, the head of the program, or it was from my fellow a cohort, or from the uh, mentors or the editors in the program. It was really cool to just come to the art. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we did introductions, but after we did introductions, that was out of the way, and we could just confront the art and confront the writing and confront the editing, and that was a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you had that experience. And I know when Natalie was, really dreaming up what this would look like, I think you just so beautifully described what she was hoping that it could be. And I'm so glad that you had that experience, and that you and the cohorts did too. And I hope that you find more of those spaces to just be with the art and do the writing and not have to explain all of yourself before you can do the art.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. Well, we'll close with telling, do you have a favorite moment in the program, or just something that you are really glad to have experienced, like it's something specific?
I think my favorite part of the program was we had a mentor editor called Raquel Hendry
Mm-hmm.
come to speak with us. I think she's based in Florida.
She is.
She came to speak with us about self editing. And I am of the belief that regardless of how much writing experience you have, you can never ever learn everything, right? So I forgot the book she recommended to us, but it was about self editing and just kind of taking us through that process. Getting someone to read your work, getting not just friends or people
Sure.
who will tell you how wonderful you are,
Yes.
right? But just kind of going through that process by yourself, and trusting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and trusting not just your writer brain but your editor brain. That was really cool because I always get so scared and stressed that I don't trust myself with my work. I want someone else to look at it, and I want 10 people to look at it, and 15 and 20. But after she spoke with us, and you go through all the slides and the PowerPoints and everything, I felt like, you know what, I can. edit my own work before I give it to so and so, you know. So that really gave me the confidence to just trust myself more, because I didn't realize how much I was doubting myself until one of my friends said, you know, 5 people have looked at this manuscript. I think you need to let it go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and
Yeah.
I think that's really common. And
Mhm.
when you're writing, you're putting so much of your heart into whatever you're writing, whether that is fiction or poetry or nonfiction, right? It's still kind of your heart on the page a lot of
Mhm.
the time. And so it's normal to want the is it okay? Is it enough? And all of that. And I love that you have kind of found some empowerment in your own skill and all that you've accomplished. And that absolutely will translate into all that you write moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that because it's you know, imposter syndrome and self-doubt, that's something I struggle with, you know, and I'm sure many writers or some anyone in any field struggles with.
Sure.
But I think that's something peculiar with writers. Just kind of gaining that confidence to self-edit and not have to have 20 people look at my work. That was really good.
Good. I'm glad you found some freedom there
Hmm.
because I cannot wait to read your story. I can't wait to read all of your stories. I've been interviewing you guys, and I am just so excited about what you've been writing and creating together. And truly, thank you so much for applying to Authentic Voices and for saying yes to it and just going into it so open heartedly. I am so happy for you and am going to just be cheering you on because I think you've got an amazing career ahead of you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you for taking time to speak with me today. It means a lot.
Well, we need to hear your stories and I can't wait for others to hear it too. Thank you so much and take good care.
All right, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.